Thank you very much, Julia. And that's my cue to welcome everybody to the meeting. I think we still have a few people coming in, but we're really glad to have everyone here today at our Coaches Network meeting. My name is Tom Breuckman. I'll be the MC today. We have a great agenda, I think, planned for you today, with a little bit about the business of baton, a little bit about some courage and some innovation, and a little bit about some preparation for Novice Solo. And interspersed with that, we have a new feature for this afternoon's agenda, just a very informal spotlight on a couple members. We'd like to do a spotlight on a coach each month, and also do a spotlight on some of our mentors each month. This has turned out to be a very interesting meeting and mix of people. We have people attending this meeting who are pretty new at coaching, and we have others attending this meeting who are very experienced and have been doing it a number of years. And people seem to have enjoyed this brief meeting format that we've established. Another part of it that goes on throughout is also the opportunity for mentoring. And we currently have 4 coaches being mentored by 4 mentors. And so one of our interviews tonight will be with Tessa Ceballos, a mentor who currently has not been assigned a mentee, but's available. And there are a number of other people who are able and willing to mentor as well. And so without further ado, I will go ahead and share a little bit about the rules of engagement for this evening. And pretty straightforward. Those of you who've been here before know them already. First, we record every meeting, and I send out a link to that recording following the meetings, just so in case you needed to follow up with anything, you can do that. We very much appreciate the opportunity to see you and to interact with you. So if at all possible, turn on your camera. And we know in some cases that's not possible, but whenever possible, turn on your camera. We ask that you stay muted throughout the meeting. We'll have time for discussion and or questions at the end, but we also have a feature of using the chat box for any questions. And so as we go through the meeting while presenters are sharing information, please take that opportunity to write down questions, and we'll take time to address them at the end of each person's presentation. I'd like to turn the agenda over to Sandy Rios for a couple minutes. There's some announcements to make.
Thank you, Tom, and a warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're so excited that we're reaching so many coaches, and in order for us to get to know you better, we're asking that you put and share your city, state, and the group or club that you're affiliated with in the chat box. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, please put that information in the chat box so we can get to know you better. I just have a few announcements. On March the 16th is Raise Your Baton, celebrating St. Patty's Day with the Coaches Department. You have to register for this event and you will not want to miss it. They are planning a lot of really fun activities. So that is on March 16th. Pre-trials and the Athlete of the Year entries are now available on the new USTA member portal. Just a reminder that you need to claim your account, and very important, you do not need to create a new account if you've been a USTA member in the past. So please make sure to check out the USTA member portal. The national entries will also be available there. Speaking of nationals, we are working very hard on the schedule and hope to have it posted within the next few weeks. Nationals will be in Daytona Beach from July 16th through the 10th. So those are my announcements for tonight. As always, please feel free to reach out to any of leadership or to contact me directly. I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions or help you with any of the USTA projects. So thank you for joining us, and back to you, Thomas.
Thanks a lot, Sandy. It's pretty exciting to actually think about twirling in person, but we'll hold that for another time. At this time, I want to introduce to you Karen Kammer. Karen's the president of the board of directors of USTA and a longtime friend and associate, and is very knowledgeable about nonprofits. And we asked if she'd talk to us a little bit tonight about establishing and benefits of a nonprofit baton business. Karen, here you go. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Thomas. Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Before I even start and go into the nonprofit sector, I just want to really stress that regardless of whether you want to take the nonprofit or not-for-profit path, I would advise you in your twirling businesses to do it legal. You know, if you think that you benefit from cutting any corners, you'll find out later in life that it's not. You know, after the fact, you'll find, had you legitimately and legalized your twirling business, it makes you available and eligible for Social Security, for example, when you're ready to retire. So that's my first tip. Whatever you choose to do it legally. It's well worth it. It's worth the money. So specifically to the nonprofit or not-for-profit sector, I'm by far not an expert. I do work as the CFO of a basketball nonprofit, and it is complicated. Taking this path of nonprofit or not-for-profit is not easy. It's not, you know, backbreaking, but, you know, as they say, anything worth having is not usually easy to get. So it's worth the hard work. So first, there are two, not-for-profit and nonprofit. Technically, under the IRS, there's a 501c code, and there's, you know, 20, 40 different numbers that come after that. USTA is a 501c3. There are two main types of nonprofit, a nonprofit organization and a not-for-profit organization. Now you say, what is the difference? A not-for-profit serves the public using goods and services, while a not-for-profit organization typically serves a group of its members. 501c3 organizations are actually corporations that fund, or they're a foundation that operate for religious or charitable, scientific, literary, or educational purposes. And some of you may be familiar that a lot of the time when you have to pick what category you fall into, a lot of times sports organizations will fall into educational or recreational. Conversely, not-for-profit organizations may exist for a more private focused group of members, which is probably what most of you were thinking you would do. I would advise you that you have a clear vision of which you want to be before you start the paperwork, because they are different. Okay, so what are the advantages of taking the nonprofit path? Well, first of all, if it's set up properly, it can protect you from personal liability. You know, even if you have employees, which let's hope you're all big enough that you have employees, those employees do not become personally liable for any of the debts of a nonprofit. That means if somebody wants to sue your nonprofit for a business-related debt or an injury, they can only go after what the corporation holds, okay? Not the personal assets of the owners. Tax exempt status. This is this is a falsehood that most people believe. Because you're nonprofit or not-for-profit, you do not automatically qualify for tax exempt. That's a separate filing with the federal IRS, and also all of our states are different. So you can apply, some states you can apply for specifically state exempt, tax exempt. So nonprofits don't pay tax. So that's an advantage because all of your funding then, gets circled or recycled back into the organization itself, and you can put it to good use. As a nonprofit, it's much easier to get those much needed grants, donations, sponsorships. Because when someone donates to you as a nonprofit, they get to write that off as a tax deduction, as a donation. Now, the asterisk, as I say when there's a side note, is you cannot give a donation where you're going to receive any benefit back. So in other words, if I make a $5,000 donation to the Tom Breuckman School of Baton, I cannot then have my daughter getting free lessons there in exchange for my donation. You give that money free and clear. And that's you can't donate it in a person's name. So that's just something to keep in mind. But those donations, employer-backed, matched programs, all of that happens if you are a nonprofit. That's really the incentive for the public to help you out. The other big money item, and this is really a lot of work, and you usually end up hiring somebody. And I know Tessa's on the call. Tessa did a little of this for USDA years back, is grant eligibility. As a nonprofit, you'd be amazed if you'd spend even one day researching grants. You would be shocked at how many they are. And you really, if you spend the time, you can really, as a nonprofit, you can really mold yourself into something. Usually they're health related or life experiences for children, excuse me, or something like that. So all of those are great advantages of being a nonprofit. Now, a couple side notes. One, yeah, you hear all the time it's expensive. Now, our councils are expected to be nonprofits and incorporated. That's a protection for the national corporation. So, for example, I'll tell you that the Mideast region probably just spent about $4,000 getting that done. The thing with incorporation, whether it's for-profit or nonprofit, is that every state is different. What's true for us in New York is not true in Indiana. What's true in Indiana is not true in the state of Washington. So you really have to do your due diligence, spend some time, or assign it to somebody if you're lucky enough, to really research what the laws are in your state. So the average cost for your original filing of your corporate papers, though, can be as low as $600 to $1,000. Again, your state laws are going to make that change, or the parameters of what you need are going to make a change. If you're going to apply for tax exempt status, that's going to take you on average 2 to 12 months before the IRS gets back to you. So if you go ahead and file for that, don't think something's wrong because you haven't heard 10 months later. That's how long it takes. You can also take the path of a 501c3, for example, if you want to be designated as such as a subordinate or an affiliate company. Now, some of you may be familiar with the AAU level 3 clubs. Okay, the level 3 in AAU, they have 3 levels of club, 1, 2, and 3. Level 3 does have the nonprofit designation, costs you $300 a year to renew your club organizational membership. However, you cannot be incorporated. So, for example, when I had Casey's Entertainers was an AAU level 3 club and had nonprofit status. However, my bigger twirling business was already incorporated as a for-profit company. So you cannot hold 2 different types. So you might already have a dance baton studio that is for profit, and you're just looking to incorporate your parade kids. Maybe you have 80 kids and you want to make your club nonprofit. So you make sure that the names are different. You can't share the name. Again, I'm going to say this over and over, do the research, because what's happening or what's true or legal in your state is not true for the other 49 states. Okay, so it's pretty easy after that. It's really the paperwork and the research. One, you're going to have to choose your name. Okay, that might sound stupid to you. It's not. I'll give you an example, non-twirling. My sister and brother-in-law opened a catering business with the deli, and they called it E.T.'s Place. E.T. happens to be my brother-in-law's initials. Okay, painted the building, got a sign, got all the business cards, all their packaging, happy as pigs in mud, as they say. However, they got an injunction against them because the movie industry did not want them using ET because of the movie. Dumb, right? But you can tie yourself up in court. So step 1, choosing a name, make sure you don't cut that corner. Make sure that you look and you make sure that your name is free and able to be used. A great place to search for some of that is your Secretary of State. And you can do it online most of the time, or if you're bored, you have time, you can go ahead into their offices. Anyway, that's step number 1. Number 2, when you file your corporation paper, you must also file your articles of incorporation with the state's corporate filing office. And in that document, it's pretty easy. As I said, all of this part is the easy part. You put in your basic information, like what is your name, what's your business address, Anything else specific, I will tell you to be very careful. A lot of states have a nonprofit information packet. Research again. If your state has one, go ahead and get it, because there's sometimes verbiage that you might use in your articles of incorporation that could hang you up later on. The place you'll get hung up is if you're searching for tax exempt status. Clearly, you want to make sure your wording's right when you do that. Again, that has to do with your state. There's a 50-state guide. Go ahead and get it and read it up on your state. I've said this already, but the tax exempt status, you actually file that with the IRS yourself. And I'm not going to go into that detail because, again, if you're going to do federal, that's one process. If you're going to do state, if you're in a state that allows that, that's another process. So again, you should research that yourself. And it's, of course, none of us like paying more taxes than we have to. So that's also a great benefit. Draft your bylaws. Now, those of you that are in any of these councils, it's pretty easy. Less is more sometimes. So your bylaws, I'm a bylaws groupie. I happen to love them because they leave no area for hard feelings. So your bylaws are your internal governing rules. What are your rules and procedures? How do you hold your meetings? How do you vote? Do you have proxy voting, for example? How do you elect your directors and officers? And typically you adopt your bylaws at your corporation's first board meeting, which, by the way, the minutes of that meeting have to be recorded as well, and they go in your corporate book. Any of you that have ever been in any kind of corporation know you get that ugly notebook with your seal in it and you keep your minutes in there, at least the first ones. A nonprofit, next you would appoint directors. A nonprofit, directors, just like in the US Twirling Association, make the major policy and financial decisions for the nonprofit. Many states allow you to just have one, some require at least three. So, maybe it's you and your sister, maybe it's you and your husband or your mother, whatever. Make sure you're following the rules of your state. You have to hold, as I just said, you have to hold a board of directors meeting. You can have that if you're lucky enough and it's just you. Talk to yourself in the bathroom mirror. Or if it's your family members, you can do it around the dinner table, but you do have to record it and do business. That's where you take care of the business of the corporation. And then if you're going to do anything else, and again, this is a state by state thing. If you're going to have a flea market or you're going to run, some kind of bazaar, every state is different, and you have to make sure that you obtain the correct licenses and permits that you need. For example, NER 1 year used an arena, and our vendors, we needed permits for our vendors for the state of Pennsylvania. And the way that the state wanted all of their income recorded was a pain in the neck. They wanted them to Z out on cash registers and, blah, blah, blah. So all of that, again, changes. There's not a federal policy for that. It's different in every state. So you have to make sure you do that research. So all of that information, it sounds cumbersome. It's not, but you have to be methodical in making sure that you dot all the I's and cross all the T's, and that you follow the steps that your state requires. Step number one, remember, decide what path you want to take. If you want to do the for-profit, there's nothing wrong with that. We all do that. Profit's a great word. If it's more in line for what your vision is, then take the not-for-profit or the nonprofit path. What I will tell you now, particularly after a pandemic like we've just experienced in the last year, most of the time, the only way that you can feel comfortable about your odds in getting back into a school building or a very well-controlled municipal building is if you are in fact a not-for-profit or a nonprofit organization, and they'll want to see proof of that as well. So the other thing is, if you're lucky enough to have a relative or a friend who's a lawyer, maybe you can take them out for a nice dinner and they'll do all your legal paperwork for free. Otherwise, you can do some research. Again, there are an awful lot of legal businesses where they do X amount of pro bono work, especially if it's for youth, which we would all be. And so that's it. Again, I think it's worth the energy and the time, but when you're done, you might decide that you want to just stay with the for-profit business. But I would recommend whatever you're going to do, if you're going to do this for even a part-time living, please do it legally. There are so many more benefits to it in the long run for the little bit of money that you spend up front that make it worth your while. So that would be my recommendation. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Karen. Much appreciated. And we sort of took over the chat box with everybody filling in their name and where city and state they're from. Does anybody have any questions for Karen before we move on? And that was a lot of information, Karen. I think, are you willing, if people have follow-up questions, to entertain them? Okay, thanks much.
Absolutely. And again, Google is a wonderful thing. If you go online and you Google it, you'll find almost whatever answer. There's a million hyperlinks inside whatever article you find that'll take you. But the most important thing is make sure that you're honing in on information for the state in which you want to incorporate.
All right. Thank you again.
Thomas, I think there is a question
All right.
in the chat. Somebody wanted to know, Amanda Warnke wants to know if joining AAU is easier.
There you go.
I've done it both ways, and I would say no. I think you'll have the feeling that it's easier because you just go on to the AAU, and I'm not, just so everybody knows, I'm a national board member for the AAU. I'm their law and legislation chair. So, you know, my blood runs U.S. Twirling Association, but I am a national board member of the AAU. So what I found difficult when I did that for my club was you get the official number, you get the IRS nonprofit number on your own. You have to go get a tax ID number. So you're not really getting tax exempt status from that, which makes it a little more difficult on the other end. I had a lot of trouble when I went to open my bank account because the Federal Reserve didn't want just they wanted the real 501c3 number from the AAU. So I had to get a special letter. Then I had to go and make nice with the bank officer to accept the letter from AAU because the AAU is not the IRS. So I would say, you know, it's more expensive because, as I said, the filing fee is $600 to $1,000 typically, depending on where you live, where you can do that in AAU for the $300. However, after that initial filing in New York, for example, our nonprofit, our corporate, Lightning Basketball's corporate filing fee, which I just paid today, is $300. So, you know, I would go it alone, so to speak, just because then it's yours. You did the research, you're more knowledgeable about it, and you're not a subordinate. You know, you own your own thing. So it can. I know there's a lot of you on the call that have done the AAU path, and I spent hours with a lot of you on the phone. So I would say no, it's not easier. It just makes you feel better, I think.
Thank you, Karen. And I see that Lou Willis has also added a comment in the chat room that is a good comment. Thank you both very much. We are starting this week. We're going to interview Karilee Schmitt. Karilee, thanks a lot for being willing to do this. Mighty nice of you. And Karilee has also stepped forward to take on a mentor. She and Patty Witowitz are working together, and we're grateful to both of them. So really just a few questions. Karilee, tell us a little bit about how long you've been coaching and in what setting, and what your general goals are as a baton coach.
I grew up twirling. My mom twirled, she had a core, and then I joined the Dynamics in Maryland when I was 6, and so I've been involved with them ever since. And so, I mean, Linda Alford's been very instrumental in my twirling career, of course. And so as I retired from twirling, I started just helping out around the team and coaching. So just kind of transitioned into that role a little bit and have been there ever since and don't plan on going anywhere else. But I love team and I've gotten to do a lot of things with team through my twirling career. competitively more MBTA side of things, going to Worlds and things there. But now also on the USTA side, I got to go to my first USTA Nationals in Dayton, and of course going to Grand Prix and kind of with both of those organizations. So definitely that kind of my goals then for coaching and why I started like attending these sessions and the mentoring thing and aspect and all that is just kind of what else I want to do on my own as well. Maybe start something more local. I'm in Springfield, Virginia, and the team is at least an hour away depending on what traffic is like. So I want to kind of see what I want to do locally as well. And then I also do have some of my own individual students and just learning how to bring them over to USTA or to be more involved with them. Definitely the younger ones as they start out being part of both organizations is kind of my goal. So Patty and I have talked a little bit about that, and she started offering some suggestions like for the local things and just what I want to do on my own as well.
Thanks. Do you have another job? And if so, what is it? What do you do?
So I guess teaching, coaching, everything. I'm a teacher, a high school math teacher. I actually teach at my old high school in Northern Virginia, Thomas Jefferson, and I'm one of the assistant division leaders there. And I teach Algebra 2 through linear algebra and multivariable calculus. We have quite the range. We're a magnet school, so we have quite the range of math classes there.
Very cool. You have some cheerers around here with that. Tell us something about yourself that other people don't know, might not know about you.
So maybe not so much like in the twirling world. People might not know I was also, it's kind of similar. I was very involved in the color guard world as well since I started teaching. I got involved in high school because the band director wouldn't let me twirl. So I did guard since it was similar and I wanted to be involved with the band, and just, I really enjoyed that sport as well. So it was a lot of fun for me when I did get to go to nationals the other year for USDA to be back at the Netter Center because that is one of the sites for WGI championships. So it was interesting to be there in a very different situation. I remember taking pictures of the gym the April before and sending them home to my mom and Linda to be like, this is what this looks like. So we knew what was coming. But definitely I'm not coaching guard anymore. I decided I have a few more responsibilities at work, and then I decided I wanted to focus on twirling and just what I could do there with coaching. But my school is special. They have clubs during the school day. And so I still am involved with the color guard during that time period. So if someone's in the building, they have the opportunity, they can practice and stuff, kind of that extra time. But
very cool. Is there anything else you'd like us to know or share with us?
I think that's it. I think you covered all the things.
Well, I want to share thanks, a great thanks, and thanks for being the first to step up and do this. Thank Karilee Schmitt. Thanks. All right, Karilee, we're going to move on, and our next presentation is brought to us by Colleen Murphy-Middleton, and the title to Colleen's presentation today is Now or Never, Opening a Studio During the Pandemic. And Colleen has chosen to open a baton and acro studio in Atlanta, Georgia. Colleen, welcome, and we're really glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm very excited to speak with you all tonight. So I guess I'll just jump right in. So I'll share just a little bit about me because my path to get to the studio is a little bit different. So I own Forte Twirl and Dance Studio in Atlanta, Georgia, and I am an LLC, so I am a for-profit. But I'm going to echo what Karen said earlier, and whatever you do, please legitimize your business. And that is not my forte, haha. But I have an accountant and a lawyer who helped me get through all those things and make sure I'm paying my quarterly taxes on time and all that good stuff. So whatever you do, make sure you do it right. But anyway, so back to kind of my journey to get here. So Forte has been my team I'm in year 6 now. And I was working a full-time corporate job when I started my team. I think I was a lot like a lot of you, where I was coaching kind of on the side of my job. and had this team that kept growing. And so 2 years ago, I left my corporate job and decided to try and make coaching my full-time business. And so I started with the competition side and then jumped into the studio side. My timing was impeccable. I had a lease ready to go. I was supposed to open in March 2020. So around the beginning of March, we started to hear, the world started to hear about the pandemic. And I was able to push my lease a few months until August 1, 2020, just because it was so uncertain at that time. So I was really lucky to be able to push it. Now, when that happened, though, I had invested a lot at that point, just of time and resources, and looked at commercial real estate spaces for 10 months in Atlanta. I was in a city, and it was kind of like if I didn't open in August, it was not going to happen. And so I decided, let's just go for it. Let's see what we can do and make happen. And so I want to be very clear that even though I opened a studio during the pandemic, my priority then and now has always been the safety of my students, my staff, myself. So that is still to this day what we do. I'm the only one here in my studio now, so I'm not wearing a mask. But just to be clear, but to get to the reason I decided to rent a space or to lease a space. So I grew up by Karilee in Maryland. I twirled with the Wheaton dance twirl teams and then came to college at the University of Georgia and have been here since. And being in Atlanta, it's a big market, it's a big city. And I had always rented gyms from churches and schools for my team. And sustaining that in a city this size, the per hour gym rate in a big city is quite high. So I decided in order to run a business and grow on my terms, I really needed my own space. So that's how I got into the studio decision in the first place. And then opening it, as kind of yucky timing as it was with the pandemic, it has been a blessing in the sense that my students have had a place to come practice. It's not as big as our gyms have been, and as a gym is. I'm in a 1,800 square foot space. So ceiling height of 22 feet at a peak, it goes up into a triangle. So, but enough for fast kids to do double illusions and all that. So it's nice to have a place of our own to practice. So that kind of is how I ended up here. So I want to talk about just 3 quick things about the studio during the pandemic that has been a little interesting. So starting with logistics. So just getting people in here to paint, to do some of the build out and stuff had to be kind of restructured from how we had originally planned it. The nice thing about the space I'm in is I'm in a warehouse type of space in a business row. So we're able to have a roll-up door going to the outside at all times, which has been really nice during the pandemic and during practices. I also know I'm very fortunate compared to the rest of the twirling country that I live in Georgia, where it is, summery weather for most of the year. So that roll-up door stays open for the majority of the time while we're practicing or while if I have workers in here or anything like that too, especially at the beginning when I was getting set up back in the end of 2020. The next biggest thing has been registering new students. So I know that is kind of everyone's question if they think about starting a team. And again, I had kind of done it backwards. I had the competition side, and then I was trying to jump more into the recreation side. And the way that I had grown up with it in Maryland with Wheaton was that they have a really strong recreation program through the school system, through the community department and rec departments. And so I didn't grow up in a home studio. Georgia is very lucky to have a lot of strong studios, especially in South Georgia, and they do a phenomenal job. So I was trying to reach out to a brand new customer base in Atlanta, Georgia, and get to those kids, even though we weren't able to do any performances and stuff at that time. So I got creative and I'm offering some virtual classes. So the virtual classes have been great. And then all of my twirling classes right now are also a hybrid model. So students can either come in or they can participate on Zoom. So that has been great from a numbers perspective in order to get kids in the door. whether they've actually been in the store or not. They're just on Zoom. And it also allows people to feel comfortable and doesn't have kids miss classes. So the schools around here, like if you're exposed, you're then out of school for 7 to 14 days. So even if a kid has potentially been exposed to COVID, they're able to still participate because I have a hybrid option with all of my classes. So that's great. That has been super helpful in kind of getting the word out and getting numbers. The best marketing for anyone knows this is word of mouth. So that's been great. And I'm looking forward to more of that as the summer comes here and summer camps get going and that kind of stuff. And then the next thing I want to talk about is our communications. So I believe that during the pandemic, and USTA is a good example of this, is communication is really the best thing during a pandemic. You have to tell people where you stand, what you're doing as things change. And as a business, I mean, USTA is a leader in that. And I took that as a business too, to turn around and try to do the same thing with my customer base. So a couple of ways I do that. I would say we're medium active on social media. I do not have a large staff right now, so I'm trying to share more and do more of that. I know that's something we all aspire to. Something I do try to be very intentional with my current customer base. So for example, I send out a newsletter every Monday morning with something I call a Monday Minute or 3. So I just I film myself on Sunday nights and like at the studio, and it's just an update for what's coming for the week ahead. And so if we're having like any special performances, or if there's any camps coming up, or like it was Valentine's Day and I was giving out like these little lollipops in class. And so I was telling parents that in the video, just so they know when they got in the car with candy afterward, the parents knew that kind of stuff. It's also a great forum every week to check in about COVID numbers in the city of Atlanta. We're still following precautions within the city. So that, as those have ebbed and flowed, it's good to check in with them during the pandemic. And I think that parents have really appreciated that and at least know where, we stand as a school for each week to week. So kind of transparency is really, really important. I also have our rules posted on our website and in our studio. And some of the rules that my studio is following right now, we don't have parents in the lobby. Staff are in masks at all times. We do leave it optional to the kids right now. My competition kids are required to wear it when they come. For in class, I would say like 85% of the kids wear their mask. It's in the 3 to 5-year-old class, it can be more of a challenge sometimes, but they're working on it. So but again, we follow all those rules. There's hand sanitizer everywhere. I have a 20-minute gap between every class that we use these organic sanitizing materials. And then we do a full sanitation every night between, and that is very on par with what all of the dance studios are doing in Atlanta around me. So I didn't get here on my own. I certainly looked around at what else was happening in the city around me. And have kind of copied some of those things. So it has certainly been extra work. I think but worthwhile to keep everyone safe, and because it sounds a little crazy to open a business during a worldwide pandemic. I understand that. But I do think that something I've learned is you just have to be willing to meet people where they are right now and where they're comfortable. So whether that is in person or on Zoom or a hybrid of both, or just for private lessons, but not for group classes or vice versa. I feel very fortunate that having a studio space that we can control with our own safety measures has allowed that to happen during this crazy, crazy time. And we're looking forward. We are running summer camps this year. They're all capped. They're very small. Each summer camp is only going to be like 8 to 10 kids, but for safety reasons. But I think that it's going to offer them a great experience and also a lot of one-on-one training and time. So even though it might not be the same quantity of numbers as, what I hope to have in the future, I am able to save on that in other ways with like staff or that kind, hours and props and those kinds of fun things. So anyway, that's a little bit about Forte and getting here during a pandemic. I'm happy to answer questions, and hopefully we'll have different answers in a non-pandemic year. So.
Colleen, thank you very much. You're still speaking and laughing, and apparently you're making ends meet. The lights are still on in that building you're in.
Yes, they are. So that's all. It's working. It's working. It's working. So slowly but surely, I have very good families and customers and support system around me. So I feel lucky. But the business is working.
Your comments echo so many of the strategies and the things that people have done, and I really appreciate your thoroughness in addressing them and just speaking to us very plainly about how you did it. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
Well, our next agenda item is a spotlight interview with Tessa Ceballos. And Tessa is not here, is not able to be on video, but I do have a picture. So with any luck, I'm going to share my screen and you're going to see Tessa, and then we're going to start our interview. Tessa, I hope that's okay with you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that's great.
Good deal. This might take a minute, everybody. I'm not the most adept at this. All right, still trying. Tessa, I'm going to get us started and I'll keep working on this while you're talking, okay? Uh-oh.
Yes, that's fine.
Super. Here we go. Tessa is a coach from Florida, and Karen mentioned her earlier. Tessa has been of value to the USTA many times throughout her career and is very knowledgeable about many different things and jumped in to become a mentor with us. And so Tessa, I'll start you off with much the same questions as Karilee. How long have you been coaching and in what setting? What are your general goals as a baton coach? Tessa, could you hear that?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry. I started coaching in the 10th grade in 1982 at clinics our majorette line held through the YMCA. And then I began teaching private lessons in 1984 when I was the feature twirler at the high school. I continued to do that through college and actually to this day. I've both twirled competitively myself as an individual in teams, and I've coached teams and individuals, and have had recreation programs, which I continue. And I've owned a studio in the past, but I found the business model that fit me best was working through different recreational facilities and municipalities. It just fit me better financially, and the flexibility of that, not having to have the lease, was really great. I've judged, twirled myself, and had coached teams in all organizations: USTA, MBTA, TU, AAU, WTA, and DMA. I've had a level 1 USTA judges prior, which isn't active now. I'm a level 2 coach through USTA, and currently an MBTA judge. I've judged TU Nationals and a prior certified WTA judge. My general goals as a baton coach is first to make kids love baton. That's my first priority. The second one is to ensure that they learn properly and have good techniques and have fun. But my end goal with every student that I touch is I want them to become more educated in baton than I am. And I'm a success when any twirlers that I work with become better than I was.
Very cool. Thank you, Tessa. It sounds like this is your full-time job. Do you work another job at all?
Oh, yes, I do. I have a full-time job. I work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and I'm a law firm administrator. I run a law firm that handles mass torts, and we do pharmaceutical lawsuits where we sue drug companies when people become injured from bad medicine. And I'm a senior paralegal. So then I get off work on Thursdays and Fridays and rush out the door to get to my classes from 6 to 8 on Thursday nights and Friday nights. And then on the weekends, either have team practice or I'm coaching or judging or going to contests, which I love dearly because I see all my friends, my twirling friends.
Very cool. Tell us something about you that other people don't know.
Okay. Well, I was always a huge sports fanatic. I played every sport there was. I grew up in a neighborhood with all boys. Sandlot football was my game. Baseball, basketball, I did those all through elementary school and middle school. And when I was in the 8th grade, one of my best friend's moms said that I needed to find something a little more feminine and ladylike because we were getting ready to go to high school and young ladies just didn't do that. So I was really shocked and offended and took it to heart. So I started looking at girls' sports and I saw baton and I thought, well, they throw it, they catch it, they don't have to wear a helmet like when we do baseball. They're not wearing mitts. They're not wearing pads like football. So it can't be all that bad. It looks like it could work for me. And I tried it and I just fell in love with it and I've done it ever since. And when I went to college as feature twirler, I originally in 1984, that fall, had enrolled to be sports administration. And true story, they removed me from the class, even though I was the only one in the class that could answer about zone defense and basketball and man-to-man and football, what a flea flicker, I knew all the answers and the fellas in the class did not. I was the only girl. And literally at the end of the class, he removed me and put me in a dance class and said that girls just couldn't do that. And, people don't realize that wasn't that long ago, and that doesn't happen now, but it happened to me. And I guess that's another reason that I really enjoy and am grateful to be involved in baton and be able to participate in my state councils and any of the different groups I have from other organizations to help them with contests and anything I can, because that management part is always been very interesting to me. And so I'm just grateful to be able to participate.
Wow. Thank you so much, Tessa. It's really interesting. There really are many different venues and different paths to take to what one wants to do with their business, and interesting the different paths that you have taken throughout your life. Anything else you want to share with us this evening?
I guess the last thing I would like to share is that everyone has skills and expertise that we can learn from. Different twirling styles are not bad or wrong. I have never seen bad twirling. I've seen inexperienced twirling. And I think it's important that we share our knowledge, and it's important also, more important, how we approach those that can benefit the most from better practices that we might have learned along the way, so that they can be better and they can teach better, and that everybody needs to be treated with respect and not dismissed if they don't have the same level of knowledge or ability, because at the end they share the same passion and affection for baton twirling that we all do.
Great comments, Tim. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And Tessa's available as a mentor. So if any people are looking for mentors, just let us know. All right. Amanda Guidroz is from Louisiana. I've had the pleasure of watching Amanda both as a twirler and as a judge. And we're really happy to welcome Amanda to this evening's agenda, talking a little bit about getting ready for Novice Solo and some of the foundations within. Amanda Guidroz.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Tom, so much. I'm excited to thank you for inviting me to be a part of this session and to be able to hear so much. I love hearing everyone's story, and like you, Tessa said, everyone has something to contribute, and I'm glad I get to be a piece of that tonight. Like Karilee, I'm a high school teacher as well, so I look at teaching. Not just, well, my regular teaching job, of course, but baton, like I do a teacher in the classroom, building a curriculum. So tonight, being invited to bring to you basically a little bit of a curriculum that I follow for building the Novice twirler, and what my goals are and how some of my approaches in starting a kid off. That's what I'm bringing to the table tonight, and hopefully it will help some of you guys out. Tom, is it okay if I share my screen? Okay.
Sure is.
Okay. All right, so because it's so a little bit more text oriented and outlined, I did want to create like a little visual to help everyone follow. Like Karen said, you know, you have so many different options in starting out your program and running your program. It's always good to adapt the program to make it fit you and fit your personality. But at the same time as it fits you as your personality as a coach, you have to also take each kid individualized too. How do they learn? How do they think? Take that approach and use that approach in your curriculum as you build it to find the right formula. So whenever starting off and structuring a class or a lesson, always take in consideration the brain development, the athlete, the maturity is always a factor. Sometimes you have the young kids that are gonna put the baton down and gonna go run around the room, or there's a little trampoline, they're gonna go jump on it. And sometimes you have to work with that. Assisting them to learn how to work through those things, make it a game. So sometimes go jump 3 times, come back, and this is what we're gonna do. And a little bit of a give and take situation. Balance your lesson with both gross motor and fine motor skills. Jumping, cartwheeling, just more explosive gross motor skills are good. And then sometimes it's unrealistic, even in the more mature kids, it's unrealistic to only focus on fine motor skills. For example, rolls. A lot of kids get frustrated in learning how to do rolls because it's a lot of concentration. There's a lot of details and those fine motor skills. So sometimes structuring your curriculum where you have a little bit of mix of maybe you do a gross motor, then you do a fine motor, and then maybe back to a gross motor. You know, find your rhythm that works for you. And now keep the kids a little bit more engaged. Always validate their feelings without allowing them to give up or quit. I find this in the classroom, in my real job, my everyday job, so much more important. And as the decades have come through, letting a kid know it's okay to be frustrated. I know you are, but just keep encouraging them not to give up, or to break the steps down and say, okay, this is the only piece we're going to worry about today. We'll worry about the other piece tomorrow. Because baton twirling, it's not like dance or cheerleading where there's a lot of very detailed and fine motor skills that come in, and it can be very easy for kids to get overwhelmed. Building the basics for the novice twirler, I take the main technique, just like Tessa said. I love that she said her main focus was to get kids to love baton, but also to learn the proper techniques. So I've always thought about that as #1 priority, but not just with the baton, but the body work as well. Then I look at composition. how can I structure things so that there is a nice blend and a flow? When things flow, it makes sense for the kid and they'll pick it up. And then for the novice performer, the performance aspect, just memory, starting them off, hey, this contest, if you only have one stop or one break, that's an accomplished, or set the goal for the kid, or if you make it through your routine, yay. And not focusing on the drops as much, because they're new to the event or new to the sport. Technique is the how, and I always focus on the quality first. And quality in small doses, not, oh yay, your toe was pointed. Okay, now go fix the bent knee. Sometimes it's just, today we're focusing on pointing the toe, or today we're focusing on straightening your arm on the flourish. So focusing on one thing at a time in small doses, especially with the novice twirler. Teaching the baton and the body work separately, I find is beneficial. Because sometimes that novice twirler doesn't have any kind of body work or dance. So to try to do both at the same time definitely is overwhelming. So teach them separate. So for example, when the baton does this, once you're ready to blend them together, you know, you have to take the point in the time to say, when my baton does this, my foot slides forward, and then I'm gonna twist for my pivot. But breaking it down and teaching them how to blend and going through that basics is gonna help with the technical process. And of course, building the technique, it's the foundation. And by having that very strong foundation, like a house or anything else, they will be able to progress as they keep going. Once they hit that intermediate level and they've got those basics with strong technique, as a coach, you just start finding like, oh, wow, it starts really clicking. Clicks for them, and then it clicks for the coach as well. Next is the composition is the what. So what is being composed? So the idea is making it strong, but also a logical composition that's going to allow the blend and the flow to occur. So going from right hand to left hand and having that transition connect in between will build up. So I made a list. This is kind of like where I kind of go more curriculum based here with full hand skills. So I usually start off with, these are my items, and I will just simply wrist twirls, figure eights, teaches the wrist flexibility to strengthen the grip. So your first rec class that you start off, you know, we start off with your dig and dump and your ice creams and swirl your ice cream. And then, but at the same time, always use that as a maintenance to, okay, can you keep the arm straight still? You know, make a game out of it. Who can go quicker? Second, passes right to left hand. This is something that one of my mentors taught me whenever I started teaching young ones. She said, well, you really have to watch how kids pass their baton. And I said, it's a pass. And she's like, oh no, it is not a pass. You know, how they pass the baton, and then do they go up, or do they kind of just break the hand, or is it with a tight grip or a loose grip? I never thought about analyzing a pass before, whether or not it's a loose grip or a tight grip. But as I started utilizing and paying attention to a pass, it's like, okay, it does makes more sense in the long run. It may not be as much instantaneous. Two hand spin, you know, that's your prep for your thumb flip. It gets that palm extensions. Making a game out of that. Some of my little ones, we would start with our little, you know, two-hand, and they would open up, and, you know, we would treat it like a Cookie Monster, you know, and or the Tickle Monster. I would go and tickle their hand, and, you know, can you beat me? Because I would want them to open up all the way, but close real fast to try to build up the wrist flexibility. So I would say, okay, you know, if I open up and I tickle you, you know, eat me up. So you can integrate some of the games like that with the little ones. Swings is going to teach them how to loosen up their grip on the baton so that they're from the middle. And again, kind of like working on that loosen grip, not being a very tight grip on the baton. Wraps, whether it be, and just I start off with just a simple underarm because they can see it, they can identify with it. So I would do underarm wraps first before I would go behind the back, because behind the back they have to you know, kind of have their wrists curve up. And then finger twirls, both the right hand, building that. Sometimes I felt like with some kids I didn't stay on finger twirls long enough, where I felt like I stopped using finger twirls, and then later on I've learned that I needed to keep kids doing that a little bit longer in the development process. I've learned from experience on that one. All right. When it comes to the aerials, that's always with the novice twirlers, the trivial part, because this is where that fear factor comes in for kids. Some are like, they have no hesitation, and then some are scared. I remember, so my instructor had like a section of the ceiling. She wanted us to make a hole in the ceiling, and she would say, make your mark. And I mean, I was like, oh, that's so bad. She's like, that's what it's there for, make your mark. And I was like, okay, yeah. And then my dad had tree branches in the front yard, and he was like, okay. And he would set those goals for me. So whether it be, you can do that, setting those goals, that physical goal is, I feel like, very important when it comes to the aerials. But you can do the 3 different aerials you see on your screen. You can do that goal oriented, that physical at any stage. So a dead stick lift, you know, where it's just a rocket throw, where there's no rotation at all, you can use that physical setting. Swing and throw, I like this one because it's more of a full hand release. And I usually have them do this under their leg, because when their hand has to come under their leg, it has to come full all the way down and then up, because sometimes that swing and throw, if they don't have that leg to go underneath to release, you're working with the pattern, and then it comes out of the hand. So that will kind of give them a physical guide to work with that. And then lastly, of course, the horizontal lift. I feel like that gives them a slower rotation. All of this I do way before a thumb flip, because the thumb flip, you know, they've got to learn how to get in between those revolutions. And that's a whole nother level of scariness for them. All right. Catches, I mean, at the novice level, I wouldn't really worry too much about this, but if anything, it would be more just a drop, catch at the waist, or I would have them lunge and then drop, catch under the leg. All right, on the body composition side, with the novice, I still find it very important to take time to set the tone in your structure within the curriculum to make body a must. Lunges, they're going to engage the leg muscles. I may not overly stress on turnout or, you know, pull your heel under, but to get them in a lunge, Piques, how to step onto a straight knee. Passes, foot placement, toe point, releves, and then jumps. Something that gets them ready for a saute. So a jump may be a knee tuck or a straddle jump. All right, so technique is the how, composition's the what. The last part is the performance, which is memory is just the objective at the novice level. Prepare the athlete with realistic goals each week. So you may say, this week I want to see you do this. And then at the end of the class, say, okay, whenever I see you again, this is what we're going to work on, and that's going to be our goal. So that they have each class period a realistic goal that they can feel like they achieved. And then they have something to look forward to next week. And your go-getter kids, if they know what you want them to do next week, they might actually work on it. And it gives them their individual drive. I do have little videos to provide as an example. Let me see if I can get this in the chat box as well. I'm posting a YouTube link as well to this video in case, oh, sorry. I did post a video link in the chat box in case the video doesn't display very well. This is just the first section of a novice solo. So you're gonna see those curriculum basics, both body and baton. Okay, and you'll see I always try to make it at the novice level to go right hand, left hand, and alternate, because that tends to work better when it's like right, right, or left, left. Sometimes that can be challenging, but it's easier to alternate at this stage, the right and the left hand. So, any questions so far? Let me see if I can stop.
Well, Amanda, thank you very much. It was really fun seeing the video after seeing the elements of your lesson. For a guy like me who doesn't understand it all, I was able to see it in action. Thanks a lot for doing that. And one thing I wanted to ask about that, can I share your attachment from today's meeting?
Yes, of course.
Perfect. It's just sort of nice for people to be able to look back and take a little more time with that if needed. And so if you send that to me, I'll include it in the email. All right?
No problem.
Good deal. Thank you everybody for coming this evening. I just have a few closing announcements if it's okay. If you have not yet entered your name and your city and state where you're from in the chat box, would you please do so before you leave tonight? That'll help us, just helps us a lot. I wrote down the word proud, and I'm pretty sure a number of other people had that same word throughout this evening's presentation. One of the sources of my pride is, like these other guys, I'm an educator as well. Watching people do this in a non-feedback situation is most amazing, because you really literally just have to put yourself out there and hope. Thank you so much for being the risk takers that you are. And also, What a wealth of resources and knowledge in the room. Thank you, everybody, for being part of this. So I will send along attachments tomorrow. I want to acknowledge those people who've asked for mentors. I want to share that Patty Witowitz is working with Karilee Schmitt, and that Elise Windsor is working with Jill Holcomb, and that we are working on finalizing mentor matchups for Madison Ice and for Sarah Rudin. And we're just very happy. One of the other things to have the mentor program going, we're very happy. And I'll include a link tomorrow as in the follow-up minutes as well, if you wish to apply for a mentor. And I think that's it. Sandy or anybody else, anything to add?
Just a reminder, don't forget to register for Raise the Baton on March 16th and check out the member portal.
Thanks a bunch. And our next meeting will be Tuesday, April 13th. Thanks everybody for attending. Have a great evening.